I was 22 when this happened, back in late 2018, and even now I still check over my shoulder whenever I stop at a gas station after dark. At the time, I was working nights at a small convenience store just outside of Ashford, Tennessee, off a lonely stretch of state highway, where traffic died completely after 10 p.m. It was one of those places people only stopped at because there wasn't another station for miles. I only took the job because I needed something temporary while figuring out what to do with my life. I told myself it was easy money. During the day, it honestly wasn't bad. People came through constantly. Truckers, parents grabbing snacks for road trips, construction workers loading up on energy drinks. But the night shifts were different. The store always felt too bright inside, like the fluorescent lights were trying way too hard to fight back the darkness pressing against the windows. And outside was just empty black highway, scattered trees and silence. That night, I was working alone. My manager, Brent, had left around 7 after reminding me for the 100th time to count cigarettes before locking up. Everything was normal until about 9:15 when the store phone rang. I answered without thinking. For a second, there was only static. Then a voice came through, low, slow, deliberately distorted. It sounded fake, almost cartoonish, like someone trying way too hard to imitate a horror movie villain. "Are you alone tonight?" I actually laughed. I thought it had to be one of my friends screwing with me. "Nice try," I said. "You practicing for Halloween already?" Then I hung up. I immediately texted our group chat. "Which one of you idiots is calling the store sounding like a serial killer?" The responses came fast. "What? Bro, I'm at home. Record it next time." Typical. I rolled my eyes and got back to stocking shelves. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. Same number, blocked caller. I picked up. The same voice said, "You shouldn't hang up on people who know where you are." This time I didn't laugh. There was something off about the way he said it. No joking tone, no cracking voice, just calm, controlled. I hung up again, but now my stomach felt tight. I walked to the front windows and looked outside. Nothing, just the pumps sitting under yellow light and darkness beyond them. A pickup truck pulled in a minute later, and I forced myself to relax while ringing up the driver. Probably still some stupid prank. The third call came around 10:05. This time the voice asked, "Does it always get this quiet out there?" That made my blood run cold, because the store had just emptied. There were no customers, no cars at the pumps, and there was no way anyone should have known that, unless they were watching. I slammed the phone down. Right then, I texted my friends individually. Every single one denied it. One even FaceTimed me from his couch. That's when I realized this wasn't a prank. I started checking the security cameras. There were 6 total, 2 inside, 4 outside. But the outside cameras were garbage at night, all grainy static and dead angles. Still, I kept cycling through them. Parking lot, pumps, dumpster area, side alley. Nothing. Then I heard it. A faint metallic tap. Outside. Somewhere near the side wall. I froze. A few seconds later came another sound, like gravel shifting under someone's shoe. I told myself it could have been anything. Wind, trash moving, an animal. But then the phone rang again. I just stared at it. It stopped, then started again immediately. And again. And again. I let it ring. By the 5th time, my nerves were shredded. Around 11:20, the front door chimed. The sound nearly made me jump out of my skin. A man walked in. Late 20s maybe, average height, dark hoodie, clean jeans, nothing outwardly strange. But something about him felt wrong immediately. He didn't say hello, didn't glance around like customers usually do. He just started wandering slowly through the aisles. I watched him through the convex mirror near the register. He moved strangely, not browsing, circling, pausing. Every so often, I'd see his eyes over the top of the shelves, fixed directly at me. He spent nearly 10 minutes walking around before finally bringing a bag of chips to the counter. I scanned it without speaking. When I looked up, he was staring straight into my eyes. Not angry, not confused, just staring, completely expressionless. I told him the total. He paid in cash. Still didn't say a word. Then he picked up the chips and walked toward the exit. For 1 second, I thought maybe I had imagined it all. Then he stopped halfway through the doorway, and without turning fully around, he tilted his head back toward me and smiled. It wasn't friendly. It was deliberate, like he knew exactly how unsettling it was. Then he stepped outside. Instead of heading to a car, he walked around the side of the building toward the alley near the dumpster. And as he disappeared from view toward the front, he kept his eyes locked on me through the glass. I ran to the camera monitor. The side camera caught him for half a second. Then he vanished into the blind spot behind the building. And he didn't come back out. I waited. 30 seconds. A minute. 2. Nothing. That's when I locked the front door 20 minutes early. I texted my brother and told him something was seriously wrong. Then I rushed through closing as fast as I could, barely even counting the register. Every few seconds, I checked the cameras. Still nothing. Midnight finally came. I grabbed my backpack, killed the lights, and stood at the front door trying to work up the nerve to leave. My car was parked along the side lot, about 40 feet away, the same side of the building where he had disappeared. I told myself he was gone. I unlocked the door, stepped outside, locked it behind me, and started walking fast toward my car. I was halfway there when I heard footsteps. Fast, coming from around the front corner of the building. Not running, not sprinting, just quick, deliberate steps. I turned, and there he was, moving straight toward me from the shadows, still smiling. For a second, I completely froze. It's strange how fear works. You always imagine that if something dangerous ever happened, adrenaline would instantly kick in and you'd know exactly what to do. That's not what happened. My body locked up. I just stood there staring at him as he closed the distance between us, his smile somehow wider now, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. Then instinct finally hit. I yanked my car door open so hard it bounced against its hinge and nearly slammed shut again. I practically threw myself into the driver's seat, fumbling so badly with my keys that I dropped them into my lap. The man kept coming, fast, still not running. That somehow made it worse. It was like he knew he had all the time in the world. I finally jammed the key into the ignition, twisted, and the engine coughed. For one horrible second, it didn't turn over. The man was only a few feet from my hood now. I could see his face clearly under the parking lot lights, completely blank except for that smile. Then the engine roared to life. I slammed it into reverse and peeled backwards so hard the tires screeched against the pavement. As I fishtailed out of the lot, I glanced in the rearview mirror. He'd stopped moving. He was just standing there, under the glow of the overhead lights, watching me, still smiling. The entire drive home, my hands shook so badly I could barely keep control of the steering wheel. I was sending voice messages to everyone I knew, practically yelling into my phone. I wasn't imagining it. He was there. He came after me. My brother called immediately and stayed on speaker until I got home. The second I pulled into my driveway, I nearly cried from relief. I barely slept that night. Every time headlights passed my house, I thought it was him. The next morning, I called my manager, Brent, and told him exactly what had happened. At first, he sounded concerned. He said he'd review the security footage himself. A few hours later, he called back. His tone had completely changed. "Well," he said, "I looked at everything, and honestly, I think you got yourself worked up." I remember gripping the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "What?" "The guy bought chips and left. That's all the footage shows." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I explained again that the side camera had a blind spot, that the man disappeared behind the building, that he came at me from the front corner when I was leaving. Brent sighed like I was inconveniencing him. Look, Mason, you were alone all night getting weird phone calls. You spooked yourself. It happens. That was the moment I knew I was done. I quit on the spot. Didn't even bother giving notice. He muttered something about me being dramatic, but I hung up before he could finish. For weeks after, I kept replaying everything in my head. The calls, the questions, the way the caller somehow knew exactly what was happening inside the store. The man's silence, that smile. There was no doubt in my mind they were connected. Either the caller had been the same man using some voice changer app or distortion device, or there had been someone else outside watching and feeding him information. Both possibilities made my skin crawl. I tried to move on, and eventually life settled back into something close to normal. Until about 3 weeks later. I was at home on a Saturday afternoon when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. No message, just a picture. It took me a second to understand what I was looking at. Then my stomach dropped. It was a picture of the gas station, taken at night from across the road. The lights were on, and through the front windows you could clearly see the register, where I used to stand. Below the photo was one sentence. You should have answered the last call. I felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I called the number immediately. Disconnected. I went straight to the police. They took the report, copied the text, and told me they'd look into it. Nothing ever came of it. No traceable number, no suspect, no explanation. A few months later, I heard from a former coworker that Brent had finally hired someone else for overnights, a college kid named Trevor. He only lasted 4 shifts. Apparently, he quit after reporting repeated prank calls during his shifts. Calls where the voice kept asking if he was alone. Brent tried brushing it off again, but this time, Trevor's father came down to the station himself after his son found muddy footprints outside the locked employee exit. The store stopped doing overnight hours not long after that. To this day, whenever I stop for gas late at night, I never go inside if I'm the only customer. And if the phone in my pocket rings while I'm standing under those fluorescent lights, I let it go straight to voicemail, because some part of me believes that if I ever answer, I'll hear that same voice, calm, slow, waiting, asking if I'm alone. My name is Elena, and for almost 3 years, I worked closing shifts at a small roadside bar in Flagler, Colorado. It wasn't the kind of place people posted pictures of online. No neon cocktails, no trendy music, no polished wood and fancy glassware. Just a narrow room with low yellow lights, scratched tables, a jukebox that played the same classic rock songs every night, and a crowd made up mostly of truckers, locals, and the occasional traveler passing through. Honestly, I liked it. There was something comforting about the routine. The regulars knew my name, the tips were decent, and most nights were predictable. But after what happened 2 years ago, I've never worked another shift alone. Tuesday nights were always dead. The owner, Rick, usually let me handle those shifts by myself to save money. I didn't mind. By 1 in the morning, there were usually only 1 or 2 customers left nursing their drinks while waiting for last call. That particular Tuesday started exactly like every other. Quiet, uneventful. The kind of shift where time seemed frozen. I was wiping down the bar around 1:15 a.m. when the front door opened. The man who walked in immediately stood out, not because he looked threatening. Actually, it was the opposite. He looked too polished for a place like ours. Late 40s maybe. Sharp jawline, perfectly trimmed hair, clean-shaven. He wore a black turtleneck under a charcoal overcoat, and everything about him carried this understated elegance that made him seem expensive. The kind of person who looked like he belonged in a private lounge in Manhattan, not a fading bar off Highway 24. He glanced around slowly before taking a seat at the far end of the counter. When I walked over, he gave me a polite smile. "Good evening." His voice was smooth, measured, the kind of voice that instantly makes people trust it. He ordered a 20-year scotch we kept mostly for decoration. That surprised me. Almost nobody ever touched the top shelf stuff. As I poured it, he studied the room. Then he looked at me. "Do you enjoy working here?" It wasn't a creepy question, not at first, just unusual. I gave my standard bartender answer. "Pays the bills." He smiled softly. "But surely you want more than this." Something about the way he said it made me pause, like he wasn't making conversation, like he was assessing me. I laughed awkwardly. "Guess that depends what more means." He didn't answer right away. He took a slow sip of his drink and set the glass down carefully. "You strike me as someone meant for bigger things." I remember feeling strangely flattered and uncomfortable at the same time. There was nothing openly inappropriate about what he was saying, but his attention felt unusually focused, too deliberate. I thanked him and moved down the bar to wipe a section that was already clean, trying to create distance. After a few minutes, he asked what time I got off. That instantly shifted the vibe. I'd dealt with enough drunk customers to recognize where that usually led, so I gave him a vague smile and said, "Late." He held my gaze for a second longer than necessary, then nodded like that was all he needed. He finished his drink, placed a crisp $100 bill on the counter, and stood. No need for change. Then he left. Just like that. No flirting, no number, no weird lingering, nothing. I remember staring at the money after he walked out. The drink had cost $38. That was a $60 tip for maybe 15 minutes of conversation. It was weird, but not enough to seriously concern me. I told myself he was just eccentric. Rich guys passing through had a different sense of normal. A week later, he came back. Only this time, he wasn't alone. The woman with him was impossible to place age-wise, maybe mid-30s, maybe older. She was attractive, but in an artificial way. Everything about her looked carefully assembled. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, clothes that were fashionable but somehow slightly off, like someone trying to imitate what younger women wore. And the moment she smiled at me, something felt wrong. It was too immediate, too warm, too practiced. The kind of smile people use when they've already decided what role they need you to play. They sat together at the bar. The man barely spoke. That alone felt strange after how conversational he'd been before. The woman, meanwhile, launched into conversation almost instantly. "You're gorgeous," she said, touching my forearm lightly. Her fingers lingered a second too long. I laughed awkwardly and thanked her. Then came the questions. How old was I? How long had I worked there? Did I live nearby? Did I have roommates? At first, I answered politely but vaguely. Then I started noticing the way she'd occasionally glance at the man. Not full eye contact, just tiny looks, like they were silently communicating. That's when she brought it up. She said she ran exclusive private events for wealthy clients in Denver, luxury weekend retreats, corporate entertainment, VIP parties, and she thought I'd be perfect. "You have exactly the kind of energy we look for." I gave a polite laugh. What kind of work?" She smiled wider. "Hosting, socializing, making guests feel welcome." Then she lowered her voice. "There's actually someone outside who could explain everything better." I froze. "Outside?" She nodded. "Just for a minute." The way she said it made every alarm bell in my head go off. I looked at the man. He was watching me carefully, not smiling, not drinking, just waiting. I straightened up. "No thanks." For the first time, the woman's expression flickered just for a second. Her smile tightened. Then the front door opened and a loud group of locals stumbled in laughing. The shift in atmosphere was immediate. The woman stood, the man followed, and without another word, they walked out. I told Rick everything the next day. He agreed it sounded off. He promised to keep an eye out, but technically they hadn't done anything illegal, so there was much else to do. I tried to forget it, until 4 nights later.
I was leaving after close when I noticed a black sedan parked across the street, engine off, lights out, just sitting there, watching the bar.
At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. A parked car across from a bar at 2 in the morning wasn't exactly unusual. Plenty of people pulled over to check corrections or answer texts. But deep down, I already knew. The moment I noticed it, that same cold pressure settled into my stomach. The kind your body gives you before your mind catches up. I kept my head down as I walked to my car, keys threaded tightly between my fingers. The parking lot was mostly empty, except for my beat-up Honda and Rick's old pickup parked near the back entrance. The sedan didn't move. Not while I unlocked my door, not while I climbed inside, not even when I started the engine. For half a second, I thought maybe I really was imagining things. Then I pulled onto the road, and 30 seconds later, headlights came on behind me. The sedan. Following. It stayed far enough back to avoid making it obvious, but every turn I made, it made too. Left at the hardware store, right at the old feed mill, another right onto Maple. Still there. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove straight to the police station. The second I turned into the lot, the sedan accelerated past the entrance and disappeared down the road. I sat there gripping the wheel, barely breathing. The desk officer took my report. He was polite, but clearly skeptical. Without a plate number or a clear description of the driver, there wasn't much they could do. I drove home that night with every mirror checked every 5 seconds. For the next week, nothing happened. No sedan, no strange customers, no sign of either of them. I almost convinced myself they'd moved on. Then came Thursday, a slow, miserable shift. Rain tapping the windows, only 3 customers all night. By midnight, I was already wiping down bottles and considering closing early. That's when the front door opened, and she walked in, alone. Same flawless smile, same perfect posture, same expression like she'd never been gone. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might actually be sick. I kept my face neutral and casually reached for my phone beneath the bar. I texted Rick, "She's here. Please come now." The woman sat at the counter and folded her hands neatly in front of her. "Good to see you again, Elena." Her voice was light, friendly, like we were old friends. "We're closing soon," I said flatly. She tilted her head. "That's all right. Just one drink." I debated refusing outright, but something told me keeping her there might buy time. So I nodded and turned toward the liquor shelves. As I reached for the bourbon, I heard it. The soft, metallic click of the front door shutting. Too deliberate, too careful. I spun around. She was gone. The stool was already empty. For one confused second, I just stared. Then movement outside caught my eye. A black cargo van sat idling directly in front of the entrance. My blood turned to ice. Without thinking, I lunged for the deadbolt and locked the front door. The second it clicked into place, a violent rattling exploded from the back entrance. Someone was trying to force it open. Hard. The pounding was immediate. Metal against metal. Fast. Aggressive. I grabbed the first heavy object I could reach, a stainless steel cocktail shaker, and dialed 911 with my other hand. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. The dispatcher answered. I barely got the address out before another slam hit the back door so hard the entire frame shook. I remember backing away from the entrance, clutching that shaker like it could somehow protect me. Then headlights swept across the front windows. A truck pulled into the lot. Rick. The pounding stopped instantly. Outside, tires screeched. The van shot backwards, fishtailed, and tore out of the parking lot. Rick burst through the front entrance seconds later with his pistol drawn. I dropped the shaker and completely lost it. I just grabbed onto him and started sobbing. The police arrived within minutes. When they reviewed the footage, what they found made me sick. The woman had slipped out the front door and crouched just outside the frame. Two masked men had been waiting beside the entrance, hidden from the street. Another had gone to the back. The moment she exited, they'd moved into position. It was coordinated, planned. And if I'd panicked and run out the front like instinct was telling me to, I would have run straight into them. The black cargo van's plates turned out to be fake. No prints, no identifiable faces beyond the woman and the man from the bar. And despite clear footage of both of them entering multiple times, neither was ever identified. That's the part that terrified me most. It's like they didn't exist. No records, no matching IDs, nothing. The detective assigned to the case admitted off-record that he suspected organized trafficking. He said the way they operated, charm first, pressure second, force only if necessary, matched patterns they'd seen before. That thought still makes my skin crawl. Rick changed the schedule immediately. No more solo closing shifts, ever. He installed extra cameras, reinforced the back entrance, and started personally staying until every bartender was safely in their car. I kept working there another 6 months. Then I moved. New town, new job, different life. But some things stick with you. Even now, if someone asks too many personal questions too quickly, my guard goes up. If I notice the same car twice, I change my route home. And every now and then, usually late at night, I think about her smile. How effortless it looked. How close I came to believing it. The police never solved it. No arrests. No updates. Nothing. But I still think about what would have happened if that group of locals hadn't walked in during their first visit, or if Rick had been 5 minutes later that night. And sometimes, when I'm lying awake in the dark, I can still hear that gentle voice across the bar. Smooth, friendly, carefully rehearsed. Why don't you step outside for just a minute